Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Getting Down to Business. I'm Ashley Curtis, Assistant Program Director for the Bishop Center for Ethical Leadership here in the Muma College of Business.
And I'm Jill Brown, Academic and Career Advisor with the Muma College of Business. And today we have Xavier Gray on the set, and he is the founder of Tech and Flow, a St. Petersburg-based FinTech startup. And we're going to let you share with our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, first and foremost.
Yeah.
This is a very impressive setup. I have to put that on the record. I'm actually from St. Pete, which is cool. So that's a large part of why we're based here. We actually started the company in Orlando and relocated. So it's cool to be home. It's cool to be working with USF.
Back in the Berg.
That's all good stuff. That's all really good stuff.
Before we get down to business, though, we have a 5-second game that we like to play with all of our guests. So Jill's got the question for you. I've got the timer.
And I think I've sorted through so we do not have repeats.
Good.
Okay. All right. 5 seconds
to
name 3 ways to celebrate New Year's Eve.
Fireworks, cooking out, hanging with family.
Yeah.
That was great.
Of course, I was like, champagne.
Oh, goodness. That's the key one.
Yeah.
How did I miss that one?
That's okay. Fireworks was my also number one. So
I like blowing stuff up.
I'll pass the card. You get to ask us.
So we're going to give you both of these.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay. Name 3 kitchen utensils.
Fork, knife, spoon. Gotcha.
Jeez.
And I'm not even a chef or cook.
That was impressive. I don't even think it was a second.
Have kept going?
I think that was maybe a second.
No, that's it.
That's it. Those are the only utensils
name all of
needed.
them.
Right.
Awesome.
Here you go.
You need some tongs and a spatula.
Yes.
You got a grill.
Yes.
You know?
I went easy.
Yes.
So thanks for playing.
For sure.
Now we're going to get down to business. So like I said, we're going to dive more into you and your business. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about Tech and Flow, what it is your business does and what services you provide?
Yeah. So I guess taking one step back, I spent about a decade working as a banker and a financial advisor and worked for some great companies of which I feel have great solutions, but I don't feel that they've solved the problem for the people who I would say need help the most, which is sort of the mass affluent. And so with that being said, rather than staying in that world, I was like, screw it, we're going to go do it. And so in April of 21, I left sort of corporate America and we started Tech and Flow. It took until about September to really get it off the ground. So we've been going since then. Again, like I said, we started in Orlando. So when we began, my key was like trying to build a team. So I started to try to build a team in Orlando. And what ultimately happened is now we've got a team that's really worldwide. But what it does, what we do is we build financial technology that can be used as sort of data and analytics and lead generation for financial institutions. And on the front end of it, it's financial education and financial advice that we're offering at scale. So you're the president, CEO of a bank. We come to you and we say that, hey, we can help cultivate the relationships that you have with a lot of your younger and more mass affluent clients. We can deliver education and advice to them. Through that, we're going to identify their buying decisions. We're going to identify when they're looking to purchase what could be your core products, and then we're going to drive them back to your core products and services that you already have. So that's really what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, that's incredible.
What motivated you to start your own business in a sense, and specifically a FinTech company? I mean, I think your background obviously lent itself to that.
Yeah. Well, I guess let me first say I'm not a tech guy. I mean, I didn't even get my first cell phone until I was 18, which for people in my generation, that's a statement. I grew up maybe having some computer games, but I wasn't even like the gamer kid per se. I was outside playing. I've always been sports. I've always been athletic. So it wasn't natural, I'll say. What I saw happening towards the end of me running my financial planning practice was I started niching with software engineers. And I realized that although I'm not the tech person, the way my brain works and processes is very similar to how a lot of the developers. So it worked in that financial planning, financial advisor, client type relationship. So then I was like, okay, well, if they're doing this, and I'd start asking them about the projects that they were building and show me the code and show me what it looks like once, show me that black screen with all those weird numbers and stuff, and then show me what it looks like to the people. And it's like, this is interesting. And then I started picking apart the business model of the firms that I was working with and realizing the gaps both in service and business model. And then I guess it just kind of all came together.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started the company, I had this idea for an app, but again, I didn't have the team. So where I started was just what I knew. So I was like, all right, let me bring the same coaching and education stuff that I was doing at these companies and let's bring it here. So we went out and subscribed to some LMS, a learning management system, and we started building some courses. And then on the front of it, I just put like a subscription model. And in the first year, we had 20 people paying us some subscription just to this batch of courses.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like product one. And now it's app, it's all other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious because I know there's going to be students out there and other folks listening who are interested in starting their own business. And so I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of, as you've learned along the way, you get to hear from what you're just sharing with us of where you started to now where you are, where you've got, people all over. What are some best practices in building a business from the ground up?
I mean, everybody has their own natural advantages, whatever those are. I would say for me, my natural advantage was that I came from a very entrepreneurial family. So I feel like growing up, I saw people who were business owners who took chances, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for my uncle and my dad when I was young and would do a lot of hard work for them. And they'd hand me like $100 or $200 that I thought it was billions, of course, at the time. And so I think I always had the inclination that I would actually prefer to not have a salary, have an hourly wage, show up, do that, and be okay with it. I never could really connect with that. So I think my inclination was always to start. So to me, I perceive that as an advantage. Some people may be the opposite. I think the first thing is you just have to start. I mean, you're not going to know everything going in. You're going to screw up many things. So just start. But then I would say that also my financial and business acumen was helpful because I feel like we at least got that stuff right. We formed the business, we got the bank accounts, we had the QuickBooks, we were keeping track of financial reporting, we were prepared for taxes. Those are things that occur as the business starts to reach different thresholds. Those become even more and more important. But I would say the biggest tip would just be start. I mean, have a clear understanding of what your skill, product, service, whatever is. Have a clear understanding of who's going to pay you and just go get somebody to pay you. I mean, that's the number one role of a business, is to make money. So I don't think you should think a whole lot about getting all these things in order. Just go get somebody to pay you and then figure the rest out as you keep going, because then you at least have money to figure those things out with.
Good.
Money. Get the money.
Yeah.
Go get a customer. Yeah.
And I almost feel like we should have backed up to just, this. We recently had Michael Weimer on the set with FinTech at USF and Muma College of Business. And under this umbrella, we have the FinTech Accelerator program. And that's where we got to know you in a sense. And for our listeners, FinTech, the Accelerator is a collaboration with Tampa Bay Wave and USF Mooma College of Business. Would you mind sharing some of your experiences with the program? What was it like? Like, what even drove you to get involved?
Yeah. I've had a couple, I guess I'll use the word humbling experiences recently. And I feel like this is another one of them. You know, again, you start a business, you get in this sort of startup community, which is really a world in and of itself.
I bet.
And there's a set of rules and learning that you have to acquire, which I felt like also the first year and a half of the business wasn't really learning how to run the business in the real sense, but learning how to run the business in this startup, venture capital, that whole world. And so coming in, I'd heard the name Tampa Bay Wave a few times, but also coming from that sports background, it's like we're always told as players, like, go to where you're getting the love the most. So like if you're picking a college of where you're going to go play, you know, don't just pick the shiny object, but pick the one that you feel like home and you're really getting love.
Yeah.
And nobody was reaching out from the Tampa Bay region at all. I was getting a lot of people reaching out from like Wisconsin and Texas, and actually a lot in like Great Britain and the UK. And so it really wasn't a thought. And then I was actually at that, I forget the name of that event. I think Megan O'Keefe and her team, they put that on at the Mahaffey, that Tampa Bay Tech or Tampa Bay something. And at that event, somebody reintroduced me to the Wave people. And I called my banker, who has a wealth of experience in startup land. And I was like, hey, do you think I should do this? Should I even apply? Should I be a part of it? He's like, I definitely do. You got to get involved. So it was him encouraging me being introduced at that Tampa Bay Tech event, and then applying and then getting in the Accelerator. And then to answer your question, the Accelerator was awesome.
Yeah.
USF, you guys did a great job of hosting and making us feel loved and welcome. I know that every founder repeated that over and over again.
Nice.
And there were a couple of days where we went other places and it was like, man, USF's awesome. Like, we don't want to leave.
Excellent. We like that.
So yeah, it was a great experience, and more than that whole spiel of what I gave about what we are now, Tech and Flow, really was changed and cultivated through the Accelerator. Before that, we were a direct consumer brand. So I'm sure we'll maybe talk a little bit more, but the pivot sort of occurred because of the Accelerator.
Awesome. I love that. I love that you enjoyed your stay, because we always say at USF, you stay forever. So I love that that's expanded beyond our students. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How long was the Accelerator? Because it's fast.
Yeah. I think cumulative, it's 12 weeks, but the way it functions is there are a week that you're physically, you have a month in between basically, and a month in between a week.
Okay.
What messed it up was the hurricane. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
The hurricane that wasn't a hurricane.
That messed up a lot. Yes.
You know, which, welcome to Florida. There's a lot of hurricanes that aren't hurricanes. But you don't want to be right. You'd prefer to be wrong than be right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was
I was thinking your time at USF was short in that sense, right? But
as a result, yeah. Because one of the weeks we lost it was really only 2 weeks that we were here versus 3 weeks that we were here.
Okay. Gotcha.
So speaking of those 2 weeks, you want to share with us, maybe one or two of your most memorable experiences in the program.
One that jumped out immediately, they brought, I think her name was either Jessica Washington or Jessica Carpenter. She was part of the Federal Reserve Board, the Atlanta Federal Reserve Board. And that was really interesting. I'm a total dork when it comes to wealth and economics and investing. And in the last 3 years, I've watched every single Federal Reserve meeting that was televised. And so to understand, like, even with that prior knowledge, I didn't know going in that there were 13 banks. And so like, it kind of started, the pieces put together, because there was all those, the George Floyd stuff in Minneapolis, and they were burning stuff down in Minnesota. That's one of the Federal Reserve banks. So then there was some stuff that occurred as a result of that. And so then I kind of put the pieces together. So that was interesting. That was a really cool thing to learn about. And I kind of went on a rabbit trail. Another thing that I think was really cool was just the pitch nights in which the Accelerator partnered with USF on. And so we had one at the beginning where we were kind of just introducing ourselves. And the second one was at the end where we gave a pitch. And those were great nights. There was always a good turnout. There was a lot of support.
I was going to say, that's full of energy and excitement for sure.
Right. And I feel like that event is probably how we're here because it did bring so many people. I think there were like 200 people at one of them. So I mean, that's a pretty good turnout.
Can you elaborate for folks who are like, oh, what's pitch night? Of what is pitch night and what is the purpose of the pitch night?
Yeah, so in Accelerator startup land, basically you already have a business that has some form of traction or viability, and you come into this accelerator world. Some of them, they actually invest dollars in you. Some of them, like the Wave, they're just investing a lot of resources and connections, which at different stages of the business, one of those is more important. And you have to kind of understand that too. And so you do this, and the whole point is to get your business to the next level. And then at the end of pretty much all accelerators, there's some kind of pitch night that, if you want to compare it to like Shark Tank, right? Where you're going up and you're presenting your business, and ideally there are investors and VCs in the room. And so you're effectively having a chance to ask them to explore and do due diligence on your company. So that's the purpose of these pitch nights, is to do that. What was interesting about how the Wave did it was they did one that was like a community pitch night, and then they did one that was kind of like an investor pitch. And so you could distinguish the two. The one that was at USF was the community. So you're basically asking the community that's in the room, how can you help support our business? And that was really the focus.
Yeah.
And in a sense too, how your business is going to support the community, right?
Exactly.
On the flip side.
I failed to say that.
No. I was just thinking.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, and they're incredible because from the first pitch night to the second pitch night, I mean, you just get to see from all of those resources that you're working with Tampa Bay Wave, just the amount of growth with the development of those pitches. Because I remember coming in, it's like night one, I'm like, oh, these pitches sound good. You're excited. And then you come in on that last pitch night and you're like, wow, you know?
Of course, you're always your worst critic, and I don't feel as astonished about my own pitch as what you're saying. But I agree with you. We every founder did some pretty serious work, and it was pretty cool. The days leading up, there were moments where, as a group, not even led by mentors, the founders were working with each other to like, hey, you should consider tweaking that, or hey, man, you talked about that stat. Why are you not mentioning that stat? That's a huge, so it was cool to see that environment of supporting each other, even outside of the organizational structure of the accelerator.
Yeah.
And that kind of does lead to the next piece. And like you said, talking about how this shaped your company. And that's what we want kind of students in our community to hear about, is how did the FinTech Accelerator propel your company? And, would you recommend it to fellow entrepreneurs maybe?
Absolutely. Again, it comes back to those resources. I mean, I think like if you care and you want to invest in the community, and the community is, large, right? I mean, it's USF and their group, it's the Tampa Bay Wave and the people that follow it. It's all the business leaders that they're bringing in. It's the founders and their community. I mean, there's so many people that are part of that ecosystem that make it work. The EDC, I can't forget to mention, like the St. Pete EDCs and the chambers that are really involved in that accelerator. So I feel like you get what you give, like most things. But if you're going into it and you're really trying to capture the resources and really trying to capture the people that you connect with, then you're going to connect with them. I mean, we've added a guy to our board. We added a guy kind of to my personal board. We've gotten connected with, we actually added 2 people to our board. Now I think about it. We got connected with USF. Now which I can't speak on it entirely, but we're working on a pretty cool project with Dr. Patterson, the Muma School of Business, to maybe create an investing type challenge for some of the students. And I'll leave it there.
Yes.
So all that stuff came out of the Accelerator. In addition to that, we recently received a grant here locally. We're in talk with the city of St. Petersburg. So, I mean, like everything in business, it's kind of a momentum game and it's a relationship game. And I think that the Accelerator for us helped to cultivate both of those things.
And I think that's so huge. Like for students listening, really, I always say relationships are the currency of power, right? Building relationships is so important because even as I think back to earlier in our conversation when you're talking about, you know, you hadn't been getting a lot of calls from this region, but then you're at the Mahaffey Theater and you get introduced to someone from the Wave, right? So that's networking in and of itself, right? And so it's just networking is so powerful with the opportunities that emerge through that.
I would say though, let me just add to that. I love that you brought that up because I didn't even identify that in what I was saying, but I feel like so many people, and I was just having this conversation with someone over at Station House, Marielle. I love Marielle. You go to a lot of these networking functions and everybody's there to talk, not to listen. And so if you are thinking, I want to build, I want to grow, like go there to listen. Go there just to share experience and connect with other people. Like they may or may not become your customer. They may or may not help you get the job. They may or may not help you get into that club, but who knows, who cares? Just connect with people and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice.
Oh yeah. Key aspect, listen.
Yeah.
I mean, we all need to hear that and abide by it. Oh, really? Just sometimes we get overwhelmed. I know I get excited and I want to talk, and sometimes you just need to sit back and listen and then simmer on it, see where it takes you.
I remember when I first started in finance, I was 19. I was an intern. I think I wasn't even 19 yet. And there was this old managing partner. His name was Joe Teague, and he ran the whole network office. And he was this old military guy. And he who asks the questions controls the conversation.
Oh.
And I've never forgot that.
Coming back to the program, can you talk with us a little bit about what your application process looked like? And if you remember, think way back, what that application process looked like. Was it an extensive application process?
I don't remember the waves specifically, but I can say that they're generally all about the same. There are a couple key tools that often these accelerators will use. One of them is called Gust. You'll see a lot of them that'll use Gust. The cool part about Gust is you can almost like building a social media profile. You can build out your profile. You can do it one time and then you can apply to multiple things with this one profile.
Nice.
So I like when accelerators use that because then I just click a couple buttons and click submit. I think the Wave, if I remember correctly, they either had their own using like Airtable or they might have used GAN, which GAN is like this association of accelerators. So one thing that they pride themselves on, which I do think is very credible because I've also gone through an accelerator in the past. I'm not going to mention the name. It was a total mess. And I'm one of many founders that went through it and lost money and lost all kinds of stuff. But that exists. There are accelerators that, everybody's trying to make a buck. Everybody's trying to get to their own goals. So sometimes you're just a part of getting to their goals, or other times they're actually there to help you get to your goals. And so one of the ways that the Wave really prides themselves is that they're part of this GAN network, which I don't know what that stands for. And I think it had a different name, or maybe GAN is the old name and there's a new name, but I'm sure just start with GAN and you'll figure it out. GAN. And there are a lot of the top accelerators, Techstars and Y Combinator, and a lot of the top ones are on this GAN. And so if you're applying to an accelerator and it's on that GAN list, there's a good chance that it's going to be a valuable accelerator. So again, I don't remember what the exact application process was, but usually it's what problem are you solving? What's the market opportunity? What's your solution? What's your revenue? How is your business entity formed? Often what the startup community wants is a Delaware C Corp. That's like just a standard. I'll just throw that out there now. So they basically want to know, are you that or are you not? Show us, send your pitch deck, send an executive summary. Who are your competitors and what are your differentiators? Like, these are all the common questions that you're asked on these applications. So again, if I were saying, how do I do this? And I want to go in that world, I would perhaps just go to Gust, and Gust is going to have a breakdown of all those questions. Just begin building a profile on Gust. And as you're typing away and you realize like this answer sucks, well, then you probably should go work on that
Right.
before you even apply.
Yeah.
I was going to say that helps identify and define and make sure you've really got a strong program to.
Right. When you're getting asked questions and it's like, we got no revenue. I don't know what our problem is. I don't know what our solution is. I have no idea who our competitors are. Like, well, then what do you have?
Yeah.
So it's a reality check too moment. So yeah, that the application process, something like that. Then you apply, and then, some of these accelerators get thousands of applicants. Some of them get hundreds of applicants. So you're competing. I'll say that in our experience, usually the accelerators and things that we're applying for have somewhere between 400 and like 1,400 applications.
Oh, wow.
And fortunately, we pretty much always make it past the first round, which usually is they're taking those many applications and they're dwindling it down to like the top 100 or top 200. And so like 90% of the time we get there. And then usually from there, they'll take that 100 or 200 and they'll try to boil it down to like 40 to 60. And I'd say probably 70% of the time we get there too, 80%, 70, 80%. The next round is the round that's the money round, which is usually they'll take that 40 to 60 and they're trying to dwindle it down to like 15 to 30. And then depending on the accelerator, I'd say the smallest program you see will have like maybe 5 companies, and the biggest program will have like maybe 15 companies. So they're selecting out of these hundreds
Huge
or
pool.
thousands of applications, they're selecting 5 to 15 companies that they're going to work with. So it's competitive. I mean, that's just simple math right there. So you got to really know your answers. And then one of the things that's interesting, like one that we recently applied for, they turned the question around and like, why do you want to work with our accelerator? And so then you got to kind of ask yourself that question, like, besides the money and the potential connections, they know that, like, why that accelerator? Why those people?
Mm-hmm. Do your research on that side.
Right. So it's a challenging thing as an entrepreneur, as a business, because obviously like it's just like job hunting.
Mm.
You could apply for 200 jobs and not get any of them. And so that's discouraging, and you've taken time and you've done whatever. And that's just part of the process that we're all. So then you have to kind of look yourself in the eye and say, well, why am I not getting an interview, or why am I not getting? So how can I improve my resume, or how can I do better research, or maybe rather than just applying, should I go to some events or whatever? I'm reading this book right now. It's called Never Eat Alone. It's a pretty cool book. I realized that as he's saying a lot of it, I've cultivated that mindset, although he's introduced some different concepts, but he makes the point of don't start networking when you need to network. Like, I need a job, or I need a sale, or I need a whatever. Don't start then. Like, just make it a part of your lifestyle. So I remember being 17, 18, going to St. Pete College. And for like a year, I had a goal where I wanted to get 1 or 2 phone numbers every day. So I've got like 3,000 contacts on my phone. Honestly, I don't even remember who half of them are. So it's not really that helpful. But I think that mindset was really what helped me more than the act of getting the phone numbers.
Yeah. No, that's a great tip. I hope our students, And then I love the analogy, and I don't want to interrupt your flow, but like the job interview and the resume. So when students are crafting their resume, they really do have to think about their profile, what differentiates them.
Right.
Those same types of questions.
You're just a piece of paper.
Yes.
At that point.
How do you stand out, and what makes you valuable that's going to be valuable to this company? Even as an intern, these are still these same questions you want to address. So,
which again, it's an unfortunate thing. And again, it speaks to the networking component. I would say of all the in my professional career, my biggest sales, they didn't come because I cold called.
Yeah.
They came because I cultivated relationships over time, and those became the biggest sales. Now, there are plenty of people who were cold called or cold outreached or just applications shot out, I got those jobs or I got different things, but the best opportunities were because I was teed up, and it wasn't I don't come from wealth. I don't come from anything like that. It was just pure effort.
Yeah. Homegrown network.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Ashley? I felt like you had something.
Well, I was, but I think I was just thinking as you were even describing the whole application process, I think in my mind, I'm thinking that's what applying to a job looks like, right? Which I think is good insight because I don't think some of our students realize that these companies that they're applying to are getting hundreds of applicants, right? And they have to figure out before they can even, before the hiring committee is even looking at it, it's being dwindled down from hundreds or 100 down to a reasonable number that a committee can actually review. And then that committee is looking at specific things to figure out who they want to bring in for a first round, right? And so I think that just whole process reminded me of the interview process itself.
And then that goes back to why we push joining a student club or organization, because that's building your network before you need the job, before you need the internship, establishing these relationships with other like-minded, meeting C-level execs that come into the campus, those types of things.
Well, and then I think, and again, I'm a total dork. My wife hates this. I'll be driving around and I'll see the name of a business and I'll remember hearing somebody mention that name or having read it in a news article or something. I'm like, oh, that's where they are. Oh, that's the project they're working on. And so then just get on Google. I shouldn't even do this. Now it's this. Get on Google and look up that company, and then go to LinkedIn, look up that company, then go to the people section, look at all the people, then go read articles, see if you ever see a connection to those people. And then I've opened up doors by literally on LinkedIn. I don't know this person. There's somebody I just did this with recently. Driving around, there's this one guy's name, and I can't think of his name right now, that's on I feel like every piece of commercial real estate that's up for sale. So I just messaged this guy on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey man, I don't know you. I don't really want anything. I just see that you're clearly hustling because your name is on every freaking commercial property that's for sale. And the guy messaged me back kudos, thanks, bro. I mean, who knows where that goes? I don't really need anything from him, anything like that. But connecting the dots. I mean, when you're in the real world, just pay attention to what's around you and read a little bit, and then you'll start to realize, oh man, that person's name keeps popping up. That person's name keeps popping up. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I should know them, because if everybody's talking about them, then I need to know them.
And I feel like these are the things that are outside of the classroom that you don't always, the connections aren't there necessarily to that, where they're worried about a grade and passing and getting through this class and but there's the whole other bubble of the business
which
world.
Is exactly like the conversation that Vika and I had yesterday, and is where I feel like, and I know we're at USF right now, but I love the educational system, but there has to be real world implementation into the existing framework of education. So VCAS is going to teach investing, and you've got all these awesome people in this school of business. Mm-hmm. But how do you then take that knowledge and create scenarios where students can apply it in a real world setting so that they can acquire the skill set and knowledge? It's like, okay, I'm coming here, I'm spending money, I'm spending time. but I have to be able to translate this to the next level. And if I don't, then what was it for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would flip that and say that I feel like the schooling system in general could do a better job at that.
Oh yeah, no, hands down. I mean, I think that's one of our struggles, and we know it. And even
Not
USF
just USF.
right. As a academic,
education.
yeah.
Yeah.
But USF is really taking strides to
I see it.
make those and offer opportunities and have a FinTech program on our campus,
Right.
and involve students. Come see what
I
this
mean,
is all
Merrill
about.
Lynch has a ticker symbol that's going around. I mean, that's just walking in the door and you
Right.
look up and you see, stock tickers and price points. That's tangible, real world information that is in your face just when you walk in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, experiential learning I think is so important, and I know that is one of our Muma College of Business values
Mm-hmm.
is providing that. But I think to your point, we traditionally see experiential learning in internships, study abroad opportunities, and so this is where with FinTech programs we start thinking about how do we get more innovative with the types of opportunities that we're providing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are doing it. My point in bringing that up isn't to say you're not, as much as I know it's an area for improvement in general in academic world. But I'm excited to see how some of the things that we're already working on get off the ground. And it's not just us and our company. There are plenty of other companies that are doing things, but just even what we're working on, I think will be really cool.
Yeah, no, excited for sure.
And that's where I get all amped up because every week there's something new coming into the College of Business. We've made a new partnership. We've got a new connection with a company. Somebody's moving from another state into the area and they know St. Pete is a great hub, Tampa Bay, the whole.
Yeah, thank the EDC, man. The St. Pete EDC is grinding.
Oh my gosh.
They're doing a great job.
This it's exploding. It's exploding here.
I mean, it's gorgeous. Who wouldn't want to be here?
Well, that too. Yeah. I have to jump in. I was going to mention my next question for you was, what advice do you have for students to get involved? But I wanted to mention, because this just kind of happened, is that we're already offering some FinTech courses this fall semester. So starting in August, students need to be on the lookout. We already have 3 new FinTech classes on the fall schedule. And then back to that question though, why should students want to take these classes, get involved?
I have another nerd, bigger picture response. There is change that happens in different, let's say, economic climates. There's change that happens in different industries. I mean, when you see BlackRock, let's just go there, is the largest investment company in the world. They manage $10 trillion. Now, write down that number, 10 trillion, and then think of the last item you bought, and then divide 10 trillion by the price of that item, and you'll see how big of a number that is. Like, it's just crazy. So when a company like BlackRock or JP Morgan or Edward Jones starts buying something like Bitcoin and starts placing a lot of emphasis on Bitcoin, it's like interesting. Now, before they did that, you have a really awesome woman who relocated her company here called ARC, and Kathy Wood. And Kathy was pretty much, and I don't want to negate any other women, but she was pretty much the notable woman figure on Wall Street that was pushing innovation, investing, before really those companies were buying into some of those concepts, or at least they were putting their money into it. I mean, $10 trillion, again, there's going to be money that goes everywhere just in that one company alone, but nobody was talking about it quite like she was. So when you follow the world of investing too, let's zoom out and we'll look at another asset class, which is venture capital. So, and you have to look at it like this to answer that question. That's why I'm doing it.
That's fine.
And we'll come back to that question.
Yeah.
In the startup world, if you're building a business, there are really like a few ways you can do it. You or your personal community can have money and you can dump all that money into this thing and grow this thing. You can go and get debt from a series of people. Usually it's not the bank, because again, we're talking startups. So basically take all the general principles of business and like basically say they don't exist, because that's kind of how startup world works. It's like almost growth over everything, which I'll leave it there. That's a more complex stuff. Yeah. Or there's venture capital. So then let's backpedal. Chime, you maybe have heard of Chime, was actually started in 2012. Robinhood was started in like 2008, 2009.
Wow.
Right? So let's just use those two companies alone. They've been around almost 20 years. They've been around a decade or more. All the venture capital money went into those kind of companies 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and it grew, right? So think of it as like a wave. So if you say like the first wave was really access. Historically in the finance world, you had these big banks primarily and big broker dealers, which I'm not going to get into definitions there, that basically owned the business. And the way that business worked was you got to use one of our people, otherwise you don't have access. And then you started seeing like Fidelity pop up, and some of them that's like buy your own stocks, and like commission-free trading started to become a thing, but it was almost obligated when Robinhood was started. Again, I'm not going to get into the mechanics behind the scenes, but that was the first wave, was access. Like, how do we make all financial products and services accessible to everybody? What I would say that the next wave is like kind of the nuance in between, which is like that advice education. Okay, I have access to this, but I still don't know what a stock is. I still don't know how the stock market works. I still don't know what a bond is. I still don't know how to buy a home. I still don't know how to pay off debt. I still don't my questions aren't answered. You just gave me access to these things that are, quite frankly, weapons. Evan Leapart, one of the guys in our Accelerator, says the biggest weapon in the world is a credit card, right? And he talks about this. And I want to provide education to kids so they can know how to use this weapon. Consumer debt alone is more than $18 trillion in the US. So again, those T numbers, do the math again. Those are massive numbers. Those are not, it almost doesn't seem real.
Yeah.
So when you think about all that I just framed, if I'm a student and I'm saying, I want to work in the world of finance or business or economics, or I like money, or I like investing,
I want to make a lot of money.
I wouldn't be thinking, let me look at it from the lens of my parents and my grandparents. I would be thinking, let me look at it from the lens of current. Let me do research about what the rest of the world wants, not just what I want, and see that things are trending towards more technology, more automation, more whatever, which is FinTech.
Right.
So if I want to explore a career there, then I should be equipped with that knowledge, because that's what the last decade and the next few decades are showing us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
That's all we need to know. Catch the wave.
Kathy
Get on the
Wood
wave.
is right there.
She's right down the street.
So if you don't know Kathy Wood or you don't know ARC, you should probably research Kathy Wood and ARC, because they're part of the trendsetter of that. More complex than that, but they're part of the trendsetter.
So we are almost at the end of our time today. It is, first, I just want to say it's been really lovely having you. Really wealth of knowledge, I think. But as we look back at your career growth and your trajectory throughout even your personal development, one of the areas of focus that Jill and I do on the show, and then that we have at USF, is leadership development. And so curious what resources have been helpful to you in your personal and professional growth that you would like to share that you think our students could utilize?
Books and LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Books and LinkedIn.
We push it. We push LinkedIn. I push go in, look at the people, see who you might be able to connect with, or just establish a connection because they were a USF grad, right? I don't know. I like
Yeah, no, you got the right concept. I mean, I won't be as long-winded with this explanation, but if you look at the history of humans, the only way that information has passed from one group of humans to the other is it was written. And it was written in different forms. The Egyptians had hieroglyphics and all this, whatever. But like books are the way of passing knowledge. So somebody took time to take all the thoughts in their head and put it in writing. And now they even have audiobooks, which is light saving for
Yeah.
me because I'm very auditory in how I learn. So that works really well. So I feel like you can accomplish more books faster with audiobooks. But read, hear what people say. There's so much knowledge that exists already that, I mean, there's one saying, there's nothing new under the sun. And I thoroughly believe that. It's already been said, it's already been learned, it's already been taught. Go get it and build on it. And then go use LinkedIn to find the next opportunity.
I love it. What a great note to end on.
Yeah. Thank you again, Xavier. It was a pleasure. And hope you'll keep tuning in to Getting Down to Business. Find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Thanks.